Mr. Hensel, in your prepared statement, you write, quote, "If confirmed, I'll work to advance our country's key foreign policy and national security interests in Yemen," unquote. And you go on to list those national security and foreign policy interests. The first U.S. national security interest you mention is supporting the UN-led efforts towards a negotiated cessation of hostilities and a comprehensive peace agreement in Yemen. Why do you believe a cessation of hostilities and a comprehensive peace agreement in Yemen is in the national security interests, not just the humanitarian interests of the United States?
Well, sir, the conflict in Yemen, first of all, of course, is a terrible humanitarian catastrophe. But beyond that, from the point of view of our security interests, it has provided an opportunity for Iran to advance its goals in the region. Iran's involvement has become more and more worrying with each year of the conflict. So for that reason alone, I think we have an important interest in seeing a cessation of hostilities and a political settlement that involves all the Yemeni parties, including the Houthis, who are part of Yemen. Furthermore, as I mentioned, having a client of Iran secure on Saudi Arabia's southern border and next to the Bab al-Mandeb, where they could launch missiles whenever it is convenient to Iran, would clearly be a serious problem for our national interests.
Just to fill in a little bit, using your own language, you mentioned Iran and how their ambitions in the region could be furthered by the perpetuation of this conflict and destabilization of Yemen moving forward. You mentioned in your written testimony local power vacuums in ungoverned spaces that have been created by the civil war that the Houthis and terrorists have exploited to threaten important partners in the region, Saudis and others. You also say that the civil war in Yemen has complicated our ongoing counterterrorism efforts. So particularly for my colleagues who don't yet share a sense of urgency on the national security imperative for ending the civil war, let me summarize what the Trump administration's nominee to serve as our next ambassador in Yemen has said here today. You've testified the ongoing civil war in Yemen has exacerbated the world's largest food security emergency, created power vacuums. I know I'm being redundant, but this is very important. Created power vacuums that the terrorists have exploited, facilitated Iran's ambitions, and complicated our counterterrorism efforts. Mr. Hensel, I won't ask you to comment on the following, because I know these decisions are made well above you. However, if the ongoing civil war has exacerbated the world's largest food security emergency and created these power vacuums and created further dangers of terrorism, it would seem we should use all available leverage to pressure the combatants to bring the civil war to an end. I've been arguing for some period of time, frankly, that we have not done that. We have leverage, particularly with the Saudis, and given the national security interests that the civil war is undermining, I still say we should use all of that leverage to achieve a negotiated cessation of hostilities and a comprehensive peace agreement. That's why I and Senator Shaheen and others have repeatedly called for this, and in my view, we clearly have not used all available leverage with the Saudis. So this is one of my reasons why we've arrived where we've arrived legislatively as a body here in the United States Senate, and that's why Senate Joint Resolution 54, despite the opposition of the administration, is before this body. Mr. Hensel, on October 30, Secretary Pompeo issued a statement, which you're familiar with, on ending the conflict in Yemen. He called for the Houthis to stop missile and UAV strikes, and he called on the Saudis, with whom, again, we have partnered in this conflict, to stop airstrikes in populated areas in Yemen. On that very same day, Secretary Mattis called for ceasefire in the next 30 days, including a ceasing dropping of bombs. Now, by my count, 30 days from October 30 expired on November 29. Mr. Hensel, given the clear demand of our Secretary of State and our Secretary of Defense, have the Saudis ceased dropping bombs in Yemen?
Senator,
yes or no, sir?
No,
As I
not
can,
completely, sir. No.
no, they have
There
not.
have been, the Saudis and the Emiratis dialed back their military operations, especially around Hodeidah. My understanding is that the current situation around Hodeidah remains generally static. There have been some exchanges of fire across the line of control there, but there has been a reduction in the violence.
Okay, so according to local media reports cited by Oxfam, there have been repeated airstrikes since November 29, including in Hodeidah, Haja, Sada, Sana. That includes 48 airstrikes yesterday alone. Mr. Chairman, with unanimous consent, I request permission to enter this list of airstrikes in the record.
Without objection.
So this is a list of airstrikes in Yemen just since November 29 that's been compiled by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees Civilian Impact Monitoring Project. I won't ask you to comment, Mr. Hensel, but I don't believe it is in our national security interests to do nothing when our Secretaries of State and Defense have been so clearly and directly blown off by Riyadh. Thank you. I yield back.